Welcome back. I'm Louis Repetto. I used to be in the Sea organization at the Big Blue buildings in Los Angeles. I grew up in Scientology. My parents were both in Scientology. They got into it in the 70s. I grew up in it. I went to all Scientology schools. Then I was recruited out of high school into the Sea organization in 1999. And then in 2002, about summer, I was working at this org, which is a blue building on L. Ron Hubbard Way. And oh my goodness. I was working on L. Ron Hubbard Way as an Scientology ethics and codes enforcer. A-Aron Smith-Levin, from growing up in Scientology, he had just joined the Sea Org. He was recruited by a number of people. And John Lundeen, who was the head of the American St. Hill organization at the time, he was talking about A-Aron, and he was talking about the accolades of A-Aron. According to John Lundeen, and this is what I knew as this, I was just a regular staff member, in the Sea Org at Esho. And then A-Aron came in. He was already a Class 5 org staff member at his local org, and we were supposed to replace him, but we never really did, or something. And then he came to the Sea Org, and at that time I was a public master at arms. Hey, Curse of Clarity. All right, yeah, trying to. Hello. Yes, part 2. I'm just trying to keep my word. I put 3:30. And if there was somebody who isn't watching A-Aron Smith-Levin currently right now, he's on right now talking about his story. So I'm watching that in the background. Anyways, I just want to talk about Asho. So that's me right there. That's me when I was a supervisor, and that was when I was with A-Aron Smith-Levin. He was the technical secretary, so he was over about 40 people inside of Asho. I'm gonna call it Asho. 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 I'm just gonna call it Asho from now on. It's just easier in my mind to do that. Feel free to ask questions or whatever. I'm just gonna keep doing this until I get more relaxed about it. Okay. How old was I? Good question. I was in 1999. I was 17 when I joined the Sea Org. So then I was 18 in 2000, 19 in 2002, 2001, and then 20 in 2002 when I met A-Aron for the first time. Then about 6 months after that, about a year and 6 months after that, and I was 21. I was 21 in this picture. That's when I became a supervisor, and I actually started working for A-Aron Smith-Levin. I'm 21 in this picture. I know I look like I'm like freaking 9, but you can tell everyone that I was like 12 here. Scientology can't prove I'm not 12 in this picture, so yeah, you don't need to be that accurate, obviously, about it. To use that to picture to your advantage. I was in the Sea Org 2021, when A-Aron Smith-Levin came in. He immediately got put on as an executive secretary. So for me, I was a master at arms. I was in the security portion of the org, and our org was 150 people. So I was in the security portion, and in that portion, which is called Department 3, was 3 people. I was one of them. We dealt with the security of the org, including the arrival security for the recruits and the arrival security of the public, We dealt with any security threats that came into our org physically, and we dealt with people that were public and staff who were breaking the ethics codes. Then we would use L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology technology, conditions, and things like that. There's steps and formulas that you have to do in a precise order and getting this an exact result. The result is always you're more like L. Ron Hubbard. You think more like him. You agree with what he is saying. That is the result. So then I was doing all these ethics handlings on people. That was my job. So I was but I was in charge of public and I was in charge of staff. I was not the head of this security section either. Then Aaron comes in. I'm pretty sure I had to interview him. I'm pretty sure I remember him being in and out of the area that we worked in, which is so it's a set of rooms. The area that I worked in at the time was on a floor where every single room had codes. You have to swipe your card and you have to press on a keypad to get into the rooms. That's how confidential the information was inside these rooms. And that's where I supposedly worked. I worked with all of the ethics files, so they kept an accurate record of all the staff and the public. So they kept all of these files on every single person and all of the bad things that they'd ever done, all of the good things that they have done, called commendations, all of the justices that they've done. So I remember when Aaron came in, we got his ethics file. Don't remember it being very big. And then, so maybe like that. Probably, I can't remember it specifically. Master of Arms, does that mean you were in charge of any weapons as well? I was not personally, no. But, okay, yes. Let me change that. We had a baton. We didn't use it as a weapon, but it was a symbol of force, according to L. Ron Hubbard. It's this baton with copper caps on the end of it. We'd walk around with that as like ethics presence, they call it. You're supposed to exude this attitude, and attitude is the ideas that you have and the way you act towards something. So, hey Saul. So does an auditor have a list of public scheduled each day? What was an auditor's schedule like? Okay. Gotcha. Aaron comes into the org 2002. And I'm pretty sure I did interviews on him. I do remember that he had a situation where he owned a house outside of, he owned this house and he was like getting monthly payments on it somehow. I don't know how that works. At the time, I didn't know how it works. Now I know, obviously. But, because I live in the real world now, he had like, I don't know, $500 to $700 ish coming to him like every month. I don't know the exact number. I do remember at the time I knew though, but now, so that was considered like an external influence on him and was part of his Project Prepare that you do before you join the C organization. You have to do these prepare steps. So part of his prepare was to get rid of this house that he was getting money from, to get rid of all your possessions, essentially, because you're just going to be living at the base, and you don't need a house or an external influence, cash inflow. So that was one of the things that was part of his Project Prepare. He said he had this whole plan and how he's going to get rid of it, and, you know, it was all written down and typed up. I had to like put him on the meter at one point and ask him some questions about it. I didn't see anything. He has a pretty nice needle. A-Aron Smith-Levin's needle is fairly loose, clean like this. Was not jagged or dirty or anything. Like it's negative apparently in Scientology to have a really like stuck, dirty needle, they call it. But A-Aron, he had a nice flowing needle. It was very sensitive to questions and other things. Anyways, you always want to get, when you're auditing someone, you always want to have someone who has a needle that is responsive. You don't want an unresponsive needle. You don't want to have to sit there trying to constantly clean up the dirty needle. And the dirty needle is like into agitation. And you have to keep asking the person for thoughts or considerations. And once they've gotten off all of their current thoughts or considerations, the needle's supposed to go clean with just no movements. Well, A-Aron had a very nice, clean needle. He had some pretty big FNs too, floating needles. That's where the needle goes back and forth at a slow rhythmic pace of the needle, blah, blah, blah. I've audited him as well. He's got a nice needle. It's like 3 inches. I've seen some really big FMs on A-Aron, you know? So that's always a cool thing, especially when you're doing an interview on somebody, you know? You want to have a needle that's like useful. I'm going to have to go back through these questions here. Do I still believe in the merit of the needle? I believe it's responding on something, but it's not what L. Ron Hubbard is saying it's responding on. It's not because you're thinking a picture, and that is what is moving the needle. You know? So, back to A-Aron, I had to put him on the... So I'm just kind of going through. I'm trying to just jog up memories here. I'm going to start complimenting A-Aron. What a nice needle you had. Or you could say have. You could say your needle's clean. You have a beautiful needle. Oh, your needle's so great. Oh my gosh, I hate his needle. Oh, I hate that guy's needle. It's like, that was what like auditors would say to other auditors or supervisors to others. You're not supposed to do this, but it ends up, his needle, it's hard. Oh God, not him. He's got the worst needle. Oh my God. So those aren't A-Aron. Those are just like examples of just like nattering. Nattering is like being critical. Nattering about people's needles. I just thought of that. That was funny. What a nice needle you had. I would say he had a really nice needle. Yeah, he did have a nice needle. That's interesting. He has a clean needle. He has a sensitive, clean, responsive needle. His needle is responsive. That's what I would say about A-Aron Smith-Levin. He ate a lot. So part of this like whole needle responsive thing is like having good metabolism. It's like when you take a deep breath and you let it out, and it's supposed to measure the energy that is being created from the food in your body and how well rested you are on the meter. Well, anyways, A-Aron was always well fed. You know, he had this external influence where he was getting the money every month. No, just kidding. He says he liked the food there. I believe you, A-Aron, I swear. But I hated the food. It was disgusting. A-Aron was a buff guy. He was buff. You know, he had big muscles. And he walked like he had a lot of energy. So put him on the needle. He had the situation where I believe his hands were real wet, or they get real moist. So on the meter, you have to have the person between a certain number on the meter. When the needle is on the dial like this, and you have the amount of pressure that is being pushed through the person, the electricity, that lever is supposed to be between 2 and 3. When it goes below 2, you're supposed to check their hands because they have sweaty palms. So we used to do this trick. I used to do a trick. I remember, so we'd wash their hands, then put talcum powder on it, then wash their hands, then put talcum powder again. We'd have to go through this every single time before you go on the meter, if your hands are all sweaty like this. Apparently, if the tone arm is below 2.0, according to L. Ron Hubbard, the person is overwhelmed by life. But it was mostly the sweat. As soon as we got that sweat in between the hand connection of the cans, between the 2 and 3 with Aaron, his needle was awesome. Very responsive. Excellent needle, Aaron. Definitely have. So, Aaron needs a needle emoji. I agree. Sensitive and responsive. As a needle should be. Sweaty hands. Sweaty hands probably give much better conductivity. Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't know about the powder. Did it have a smell to it? No. There was like different powders. I found this powder. I think we would use magnesium powder as well. Anything that we didn't want to block the connectivity. We just wanted to, soak up the wetness there. And then during the session, you see they're going to be holding the cans the entire time. So they're going to accumulate more sweat. So we would have to go to the bathroom, 30 minutes into the session and wash your hands. So you have to do that to keep the meter in range, according to L. Ron Hubbard. Anyways, I'm doing the interview on Aaron Smith-Levin. He seems to have this external influence where he's getting the money, but it's being handled. And there was, I don't know what else. I can't remember anything else specifically. Yeah, I can't remember anything else. I feel like there was somebody that may have been antagonistic to him in his family, but he had already disconnected. Something like that. Oh, I'm not sure. It's hard to remember these things. I've done like thousands of them on staff member, but since it's Aaron Smith-Levin, you gotta try. Anyways. Those of us who, yeah, that's funny. So he comes into the work, he arrives. He does the estate's project force in like some absurd amount of time, a short amount of time, within a few weeks. The estate's project force is where you do 4 courses and you do a bunch of manual labor for about 4 weeks. I had to do it for about 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks. But a lot of people end up doing that for 6 months, because they're not very good at studying. Or they're not very good at studying in the L. Ron Hubbard way, which is not really studying. It's just like we're reading the dictionary nonstop, seems like. How long was the longest ethics handling you did? Years. I mean, personally, no. If I did it on somebody, I would say a few years. But for me personally, I'm just trying to find any other. I don't know. I don't know what the longest one is. Do you still believe in the merit of the needle? Oh, yeah. Just want to make sure I got all these ones here. Thanks for watching, and thanks for watching on the replay. I know I'm just Aaron's still on in the background. He's on with Nora. Oh no, Nora. Okay, I don't see anything else. He comes in the org. He finishes the estate's project course. That's when I interviewed him. I was not an auditor at the time when I did the interview. 2002 on Aaron, when he was arriving. I was not an auditor yet. I was I was trained in Florida to use the e-meter. I was trained in Florida to use the e-meter, just like Aaron was, and his brother. In fact, I did know a Colin at Flag, Florida, but I don't know if that was his brother or not. I'd have to ask Aaron. It was on the it was on an evolution. I was there for about a year, and they trained me they trained me on stuff. Okay, they just trained me about a bunch of things. So I was able to use the e-meter, and then in 2002, when Aaron came, I was using the e-meter as an ethics interview tool on the staff and public. So, as an ethics interview tool for the staff and public. To explain that, it's supposed to be like a confessional, but it's not a confessional. It's like a rollback interview. It's like you just put them on the meter. You do not say this is the session. Once you say this is the session, you're in a real session, and you cannot report anything. Okay, yeah. The only difference really is that you're recording it and not recording it. So I did interviews on staff and public. I was looking for people who were like sources of trouble to the organization, and boy, did I find them too. But I used to do a bunch of like e-meter checks. Oh, there was another thing. I was doing the rollback training the following year. I don't know if I ever did give Aaron a rollback. Maybe. But I did give him a meter check once, twice. Anyways, a year later, in 2003, I got transferred from the security department into the Division 4. That's where Aaron Smith-Levin worked. And he was the head of it. So before that whole year, I was observing him. I was dealing with public. I didn't really do much on the. Oh my god, I'm trying to think about this. Sorry. I'll have to go back to this because I can't remember exactly. It's hard to think about this stuff. Okay, so 2003, when I became a supervisor, I became a supervisor. Yeah, 2003 October or summer. 2003. I became the professional metering and communication courses supervisor, and I was working for the supervision on a course that they have there called the St. Hills Special Version course. I was in the theory. I was also in the practical. So I was a course room supervisor, and so I did training at A-Show, which is in LA, to do this course room thing. Then Aaron's like the head of Div 4. Oh yeah, I'm working with Huck Taylor, and I mean he used to be a professional supervisor. I was so because he was trained by Dave Miscavige to be the super awesome course room supervisor. Of course, he was very involved with the soups. It was called the soups. So that's the supervisors, course supervisors. And short for that was when it was being talked about, the soups. So it's like we're superheroes. I know because that's in that show. It's recently, whatever it's called on Amazon. We're the soups. So he was very involved with the soups. He was, me included. So we had to do these like training things every single day, and we would have to re-drill our training routines, and we had to re-drill the procedures for supervising. So we had to do that every day with Aaron, and then he would come into the course room, and he would look at the course rooms to see if like we were doing anything wrong, or if he would also have to deal with like angry public, or he'd have to get to the bottom of a situation with an angry public. Let's say I pissed off public, because I told them that they were wrong, or I gave them a spot check. I'm a supervisor, and I flunked them on an instant read. I'm looking at their video, and I said, "This is a flunk." Well, to say that public didn't get handled by me to find all their misunderstood words or whatever. Well, the public would usually go and complain to Aaron Smith-Levin. I didn't want that to happen because, I didn't want to deal with him. He wasn't like angry or rude or anything. It's just that he wanted things done according to L. Ron Hubbard in the way that he saw it, how it worked. So, it would seem like, and he could, your interpretation, it's not an interpretation, because it says this or that, So he would just point out the reference, he was just no nonsense, and he would always be there was never like any like slack off time, never like chilling and hanging out with the tech stack, and if you were social, it's just like any boss. I was just a supervisor, which is an amazing, and sorry, not an amazing, but it is a very important job within Scientology, the supervisor or auditor. Very important to the the livelihood and the survivalness of Scientology. Okay. But I was way down low on the org board. I was low. So the org board, he's at the top. He's he's at the very top, but he's pretty high up there. And in our org, that was the only place that I was at the entire time. I never moved anywhere else. So within that org, I had to say yes, sir, to all the different bosses. Karina replaced him later, Karina Garan, who I never got along with either. So it might have been me. The whole time. Maybe it was just me. And I didn't get along with Karina. She was very tough, too. She was very no nonsense. Get your stats up. And all these conditions have to be in place. But look, I get it. I was the supervisor. They're at the top of the food chain, right? So all of like management, religious technology center, outside organizations, they're putting pressure on our leaders. So Aaron Smith-Levin's getting a ton of pressure. Way more than I was ever getting from higher up people. He was dealing with other people. Commoners Messenger Orgs, which represent Religious Technology Center, which represents Dave Miscavige. All those things are all connected. All the orders. So those people came to Aaron Smith-Levin directly. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with those people directly. Otherwise, it would have been super intense with them as well. He just treated me intense because he was getting the intenseness. It's like a bunch of intensity everywhere. I was just trying to survive and be happy. I just wanted to see my parents during clean ship program, and that was cool with me. Like, I didn't want to, all these things that Aaron had to deal with. Not only did he absolutely run the course rooms, but he ran the auditing sections where all the auditors do auditing for money, but for a lot of money, $4,000 per 12 hours, which is about $400 an hour. So Aaron ran this whole floor where you've got tons of rooms, and all these auditors have to go in session with these pre-clears, and each auditor has to do a minimally of 25 hours. Otherwise, they don't even get paid. Those auditors, they don't even get paid the $46 or whatever they were getting paid. I was only getting half that, 26, and most of the time 12. But that's neither here nor there. He used to run this whole floor where they would do. He would run this whole floor where they would do. He would run this. The HEC, they're all doing the auditing hours in there. So we would do 400 hours to 600 hours per week. So those auditors have to be in session. So Aaron had to deal with a lot more people because he also had people that were. Not only do you have the people who are the auditors, so there's about 15 auditors that are auditing. Plus, you have the services people. They run the folders to the auditor. They get the things the auditor needs. They get the snacks for the auditor. They get the pre-clear for the auditor. The auditor just has to stay in their room, and the pre-clear is, and the public person is brought to the room by the services people. And the auditors spend most of their time auditing. They're trying to make their 25 hours so they can get paid $46. Aaron had to run the services people, plus the auditors, plus the supervisors. That was me, supervisors. Plus the worst part of the whole org call-in, which is getting arrivals into the organization. I know Aaron hated this area, but he used to have to organize getting people from other lower orgs, like class 5 orgs, like St. Louis, Philadelphia, New York, probably not New York, Phoenix, other places. Get those public and get them paid, get them here to Asheville for service. Then get them through the security portion, the arrival part, through there, and then into the HEC, where they were getting finally their hours. And once they get through their 12 hours, Aaron makes $3,000 onto his statistic, even though that person had already paid for the money. They had already paid for the service. So his statistic is when someone completes a 12-hour section or a course, and then he gets money called value of service delivered on that day. His statistic. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Value of service delivered, right? Dots and slants. Yep, that's the dots and slants. That was like in the last video. I don't know if I should repeat myself all the time, but I got to. Yep. Getting there. Cool. Cool. All right. So he was in charge of all the auditing, all the services that go with that. Oh, there's a whole nother aspect to this, which is that getting the folders. So it's like somebody was in St. Louis and they were getting auditing and they wanted to do some services at Asheville. That's where I was and where Aaron was. We'd have to request and get the folder put on a shipment and mailed to us. And all of that is part of it. Is underneath Aaron. So all the folder archiving, where the folders are stored, how they're stored, the system that's being used, all the moving of the folders between the buildings, especially on Thursday before 2, like when our statistics were calculated for the week, there's a lot of movement of these folders, like between the bases, between the buildings. So he's in charge of all the auditing, all of the training, but he spent most of his time in the training because he was a trained supervisor. Then he spent time with all these folder things, and then another thing is he's on the financial budget thing, weekly financial planning. He's on that as well, and then he's on the fitness board. So if someone wants to leave the Sea Org, they have to go through a confessional to leave, and then they have to go before a fitness board, which consists of like 5 people. And I believe A-Aron was one of them, and they have to say, okay, you're determined not to be fit for the Sea Org because you don't want to be here, and you need to get through X, Y, and Z before you can come back. So he was on that board. And then, pretty sure it was on fitness board. Because I remember having to get people through, I remember having to get his signature for stuff. Another thing that he definitely would know about what OSA knows about. This thing about what OSA would know about is any kind of public, serious, flappy situation. Like if public was, let's say, Anne Suarez. She got dehydrated and she ended up in the emergency room. So on the reports that we have to do on various things, one of them includes reporting on these medical situations that are happening with public. Well, A-Aron, as the technical secretary, he's responsible for all of the public in the org. So often folders would come through his office. And I've seen those folders because I worked on the folders and I did auditing on people. In the folders, it has routings of exact steps on where the folder is to go, or these reports, these medical situations, or the ethics situations, or the various odd things that can come up. So on the routings, it says right on there, OSA Int, CO OSA, External Security Chief, and it says that all this stuff is in the folders. My point is that A-Aron does, because he was the technical secretary, he would know about these OSA things. Okay, let's take this point of the Miriam Francis. So, we can talk about that at a different time, but my face is starting to hurt a little bit. Yeah, right. I know. It was a lot. It was a freaking lot. So, I think I'm going to end there. I want to talk more about what sort of things he would access to and why the OSA stuff. I'm not sure. I've got to think about it a little bit more before I say it. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment on the replay. And I will do this again probably tomorrow at the same time.